Hello everyone, this is Squadron Leader Rakhi Agarwal, an ex-Air Force officer. I welcome you all in this special episode of audio podcast by Indian Air Force on Indian Armed Forces Veterans Day. Today it's our privilege to have with us one such living legend of the Indian Air Force who has gone through 3 ejections, 1 war, 1 year in captivity. From the killer's squadron pilot to the Pakistani prison, captured and yet unbroken. Back to serve, to lead, and to inspire. On behalf of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, it is my honor to welcome Air Commodore KC Kuruvilla, Vir Chakra, who survived the incredible. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rakhi. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak with you on this podcast. I can't tell you how proud I am of the Air Force even today, especially seeing the Indian Air Force under the leadership of Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh and what we achieved in Operation Sindoor. So do convey my greetings and tell him that from the field of the veterans, we are all very proud of him and proud of our Indian Air Force.
For sure, sir. We will convey your regards. Sir, before we proceed further, I would like my audience to know a bit about you. A Sword of Honor and winner of the Chief of Air Staff Medal, Air Commodore KC Kuruvilla was commissioned in 1967. He was one of the youngest fighter pilot of 222 Squadron, the Killers, with Sukhoi 7 during the 1971 war. On December 6, 1971, he undertook a strike mission over Dera Baba Nanak, and while making low-level passes over a heavy machine gun and destroying it, his aircraft was hit by enemy anti-aircraft fire and crashed. He was captured and taken POW. What followed was a journey through fire, a year in a Pakistani prison, and finally a victorious return through the Bagha border. Sir, once again welcome to the show. From your childhood in a boarding school to the skies over Dera Baba Nanak, your journey is a masterclass in courage. Sir, before we talk about the wars, the ejections, the medals, and the life thereafter, let me ask you something very simple. Who was KC Kuruvilla as a young man before the uniform, before the aircraft, and before the war?
Oh, who was Kuruvilla as a young boy? Well, Rakhi, that's a rather interesting question. Kuruvilla was just Kuruvilla. I went to boarding school at the age of 5, coming from a very disciplined and strict family. And entering La Martiniere school in Calcutta, I found no change. In fact, I found things much harder in terms of organizational discipline. First thing that I learnt that there's going to be change continuously. I learnt much later that change brings opportunity. So for me, I can safely say that I went to boarding school at the age of 5 and I came out at 56. So it was life of achievements, of struggles, of recognition, and of doing well and climbing the ladder continuously, one after the other, till I hung up my boots and my uniform.
Sir, I really appreciate. Sir, when you first wore the uniform, what did it mean to you personally?
Rakhi, first time I really wore a uniform was in PTE Allahabad, and that was the Air Force khaki uniform, and that was the first place I was going to fly.
Sir, what was the most challenging aspect of training at the Air Force Academy during your time?
It was not easy. Air Force training is not easy by any means or by any manner of thinking. One has to study, one has to continuously imagine that you're flying and you're doing, and that you're in the cockpit basically and doing things. So that kind of an imagination continued, through Hakim Pit where the performance requirement was completely different. The aircraft were much faster. It was a Vampire. The single-seater was very different from the trainer and had, different characteristics which needed to be taken care of, but nothing to be afraid of. And as I said, I would tackle everything with great courage. It's because courage is not the absence of fear. It is just taking on a task and you complete it well. And that's all there is to it. So that's exactly what I did in Hakimpet. I worked very hard and I stood first. I got the Sword of Honor, the Chief of Air Staff Medal for being the best all-round fighter pilot, and I got the Ramchandani Trophy for standing first in academics. So I had 3 of the 4 trophies that were given out on commissioning, and I led the the passing out parade and stood first. Very, very happy. When I look back from the age of 5 till that day, 4th of June 1967, it was a good journey, and now I realize that my life in the Air Force was just about to start.
That is so inspiring, sir. Sir, can you tell us something about the 222 Squadron, the Killers? What was the energy like at the Halwara Air Base in the days leading up to December 1971 war situation?
Rakhi, I would say that we were very well prepared for the war. 222 Squadron, our CEO was intent on ensuring good serviceability, availability of weapons, a good war plan, all of that. He did that part of his. We did our part, which was to excel in flying, deliver excellent records, armament records, and do extremely accurate navigation at low levels, ultra low levels. All of that we did. And in terms of the war, we were just waiting for it. Personally, on my side, if you recall, I talked about personal discipline. I would go for a run early morning. 4 o'clock, I used to hit the road, run 5-6 kilometers, come back, and then I would sit under a cold shower. And I don't know, I did this as a preparation to keep myself fit. So a lot of self-preparation, which is part of self-discipline, had to be also done. We were not mollycoddled and told, get ready for the war. That was not. Getting ready for the war was done by the CEO and the flight commander by giving us more and more flying and extracting better results and performance. So that's how it went. So there was a parallel show going on, your personal show, which is building up. I read the Geneva Conventions. I kept myself very fit, and I made sure that I was ready for the war. And eventually I fought the war, and I was the number 2 selected by the CEO to be his wingman. I really enjoyed my continued training from 7 through 222 Squadron, and I was waiting for the war.
So that is a very important operational insight. Sir, during the Dera Baba Nanak mission, can you walk us through that moment, the target, the mindset, those low-level passes at 300 feet under heavy fire?
Rakhi, my missions were very, very exciting. Chandere airfield, we hit aircraft on the ground. Good films were brought back. In a place called Chistian Mandi, where I hit a tank train. It was part of Pakistan's war effort, their strategic reserves. And the particular Dera Baba Nanak mission was nice. We struck the bridge. And on the way back, my CEO got this call saying that there's a heavy machine gun. He said, we have ammunition and short, brief RT. And he said, we'll take it on. And I picked up the heavy machine gun, and I was given the permission to go ahead and take it on. So I picked up this target, did a pass, hit it on the left edge, did a second pass, and sent all my bullets through the whole MMG, and it exploded. And there is a very nice story about this, which came out 50 years later. There was an eyewitness, the Brigade Major Chand, who later contacted me after 50 years wanting to know if I was alive, was by then a colonel and he was 89 years old, and came and spoke about me on December 6th, 2025 at the Wagah border, where I was honored, and he mentioned the whole attack that he saw eyewitness, and that the army had recommended me for a gallantry award. So he brought out all this, and it's such a joy in listening to him. So yes, that was the fatal mission, so to speak. In my third attack, I destroyed the target, and at the same time I got hit, and I ejected. When I ejected, I was roughly at 100 feet, and close to almost 1,000 kilometers, because we were accelerating away and I was inside Pakistan. So I finally had to eject because my aircraft caught fire, and the aircraft was in an involuntary turn to the left, whereas my CO was already in a turn to the right and heading back into India.
That gives us a complete picture, sir. Sir, when your aircraft was hit and erupted in flames over enemy territory, what was going through in your mind when you realized you had to eject? And what was the first thought after landing alive? Is there fear in such a situation, or does training completely take over?
Rakhi, there was no time to think of fear. Certainly not. Everything that I had learnt in training now came to the fore. I was at 100 feet at high speed, aircraft turning in the wrong direction, and then the fire broke out and I ejected. It was all part of the system of training and the systematic thought process of being a fighter pilot and getting ready to eject. It all happened in the split second. It was literally split second, and it was all part of a very good training system that had been put in place in my squadron and earlier in the other units and in my training establishments which I went through. So I would give it 100% credit to the Air Force training that was given to me, and of course to my own efforts, which to this day, even at 81, I don't give up on anything, and that is something that we all need to have. And I would again say that I got all this from my schools and from NDA and from my earliest squadrons, 7 and 222.
Sir, I totally agree with you. Our training standards are very good. Sir, you were ejected in enemy area when the war was going on. What do you remember about those first few minutes on the ground, and what happened thereafter?
After ejecting, when my eyes opened, I saw a tree above my eye level. So that was it. That's how low I was. And the very next second, I hit the ground. So I wasn't prepared for a landing. It was just one followed by the other. Eyes opened, impact on the ground, as a result of which I had a severe pain in my right ankle and in my neck, and later realized there could have been a hairline fracture. It was blue, and the neck was hurting immensely. But I immediately realized that I was on the ground, and I reeled in my parachute. I didn't know where I was. I quickly reeled in my parachute and detached my survival pack and rolled up my parachute and kept it in a particular place. I had a pistol. I took it out and I hid it because I was now in very tall elephant grass, and I realized I might be on the other side. And I crawled a little bit, about 150 yards towards the east, and I hit a low wire with some tins and some stones in it. And I realized from my NDA training that this could be a minefield. So I now turned back and started crawling towards Pakistan. The idea of crawling towards the east was to hope to crawl back towards India and, reach some Indian Army unit or some place where I could be, rescued. But that didn't happen. So I crawled the other way, and another 150 yards on the other side, the elephant grass broke, and I saw heavy firing was going on, and the war activity on both sides was intense. And because I had ejected, by now the squadron was sending more missions to that area. So I was there on the ground in this battle area for 3 hours. So when I broke the elephant grass and I saw an MMG post, it had sliding iron doors. 3 people emerged from there. They were in khaki uniform with half helmets. And I immediately crawled back. I realized that they were Pakistani troops, and I kept looking at them. And they were moving away from me, so I was quite happy. And I crawled back into the grass. I hid my pistol. I dug a place and hid it. I got rid of my parachute. I opened my survival pack and got to the chocolates and ate it up. And then, because my ankle and my neck were hurting a lot, I lay down, face down, and I rested, and I must have drifted off into sleep or so. But I remember a firm hand on my neck. This hand picked me up, and it was those same 3 people I was facing. So I realized that I was now in enemy hands. They immediately started to deal with me. I got beaten up, and that was very hurtful, with rifle butts, and of course they were preparing to execute me. There was a big discussion. They were all Punjabi, speaking in Punjabi, and I was very lucky when a 4th person walked in. He was different in appearance. He was a sergeant, and he walked up, and later on I came to learn that he was a Baluchi, and he's the one who saved my life. He stopped them from beating me further and getting ready to shoot me. And he's the one immediately, he ordered them to put their weapons down. They put their weapons down and stripped me completely and took off my shoes, tied my hands to my back, physically checked me, took away the Pakistani currency. Luckily I had hidden the pistol, and I had a gold chain around my cross, which was with a cross around my neck, which was given by my mother. And that was taken away by the Punjabi chap, but very quickly the sergeant, Havaldar, he took that chain and cross. And I was made to put on my clothes, and I was taken to the same bunker which I had seen when I called out of the grass.
That must have been incredibly difficult, sir. Sir, once you were captured, frankly, what did you feel? Like some kind of a fear, uncertainty, resolve? In fact, what was going on in your mind?
Rakhi, my thoughts were not of fear, but my thoughts were on what next. How should I be prepared next? What should I be doing? And these were the thoughts that were predominant and uppermost in my mind. But all through this captivity and move, my thoughts were on how I should, contain myself for any eventuality that I get, whether it's to escape or to just be tough enough to face whatever is coming up and the uncertainties. So I not fear, but more be getting ready for uncertainties. And it's pretty much like being in doing exercises earlier in the Air Force, or before that as a cadet, or before that in NDA. When we did some of these camps, there were uncertainties. You didn't know what to expect, middle of the night situation. So same thing I faced, and I was quite calm, and I didn't really fear that I'm going to, be in die or something of that sort. That thought never ever came up. I realized that if I go down, I'm going to go down fighting. So that was all that I could think of at the moment.
Sir, during your 12 months in a Pakistani prison, you must have gone through a very, very tough time. Can you recall few important incidents which are still fresh in your memory?
Life in the cell was a different ball game that we didn't expect. It was total solitary confinement for the next 20 days. The cell was a narrow cell, 6 paces by 4 paces. It had a concrete bed and 2 blankets. We didn't know what time of day or night it was. We deliberately not given any food or attended first 2-3 days. What is worse, when I wanted to go to the toilet, I would hammer at the iron gate. A guard would come, look at me and go away. So here started the psychological bad treatment of prisoners. I had to pee in my room.
Sir, it is sounding so scary. How did you keep your mind, hope and identity intact with all this suffering? This all were certainly against the Geneva Convention. And how did you fight back against that?
This sort of harassment continued, but I refused to do nothing about it. So on the 5th day, I asked the warrant officer for a piece of paper and pencil, and I wrote a complaint to the International Committee of the Red Cross saying that I'm being treated very badly. 10 days later, after my application, there was a lot of activity and noise. My cell door opened, and in walked in this very fair man with a whole lot of others. His name was Mr. Babylon, and he was from the International Committee of the Red Cross. From the very next day onwards, we got airman's uniform, and things started to look up. But our solitary confinement continued till Christmas Day, 25th of December. So Rakhi, life in the cell was a day-to-day affair. But one particular incident was, I think, 3rd of July 1972, when the POW camp commandant Wahiduddin walked in and he said, "I have good news for you." He pulled out a newspaper. Right on top, Pakistan Times headlines was, "India returns 3,000 square miles of territory, 93,000 prisoners of war to follow." And when we asked, "What about our return?" he said, "Oh, there's no mention about you." And he left the paper with us. That was a really disappointing moment in my life. We all realized that India had not discussed the Indian POWs in Pakistan. Point is, we realized that we were not talked about, and we immediately decided to do something about it.
So many people may not know that you and your fellow officers actually planned an escape from the POW camp. What was the strategy and what ultimately happened with that plan?
So Rakhi, the strategy in all of this, the escape plan, we wanted to get out, and we wanted our government to know that you have not spoken about us, and this is our way of letting you know that we are there. Others are there. So that was one part of the strategy. And the other part is to let the Pakistanis know that we are not going to sit and do nothing. And Dilip Parulkar in particular was an officer who was always talking about escape. As part of the strategy, 14th August, President Giri was somewhere in Afghanistan. And the idea was to create an impact by escaping and reaching Afghanistan. It was a fantastic thought. So it was, the strategy was to also let our government know that we escaped and that we were forgotten by them. And not only that, that we've been daring enough to reach Lahore and come back with the president. That would have been a real sensation. Of course, the escape ended in Rawalpindi because the political agents were out looking for Bangladeshis, and Dilip Parulkar happened to be dark compared to the other two. And one of the political agents went up and questioned him, and they were immediately apprehended. The strategy was definitely what I told you, to create an awareness in India that you can't forget your prisoners of war, and that we have done it on our own.
So then how your release happened and why it took such a long time?
So Rakhi, after the escape, we were shifted to the maximum security prison in Lalpur, where we spent 4 months. And by then 1 year had passed. There was no specific reason why we spent there 1 year. We spent 1 year there because our government didn't demand to get us back. And that, I think, is a disappointment for me even till today. But we didn't wait for the government to act. We acted on our own. Got caught, never mind. We were again shackled on, in handcuffs and tied to buses and all, and brought to Rawalpindi. And, I'm saying this in a bit of an annoyance because at that stage, escape went off very well. We proved a point, but now we were shifted to a maximum security prison. and still there was no news about our repatriation. Anyway, after 4 months in this maximum security prison, one day I was called by the senior-most Commander Coelho, and he said, "You please go and help the camp commandant or colonel who will come to you. They want to make a helipad." So I helped them. We made a helipad, forgot all about it. A week later, we were suddenly dressed up and taken to a point near the maximum security prison. After a little while seated there, we heard a helicopter. It came and landed. That iron door opened and in walked Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He says, "Gentlemen, I want you to go home. Please tell your country that we want peace with India and please return our 93,000 prisoners of war." That's all he said, and he turned around and walked out. 3 days later, of course, we were crossing the Wagah border.
Sir, we can't even think of what you went through. Sir, when you walked through the Wagah border, how did it feel to see the tricolor there after 12 months of solitary confinement?
Seeing the Indian flag was not only a joy, but I saw it and it just that joy fleeted through my mind.
Sir, after returning home, how did life change for you? Was it easier, harder, or something you never fully talk about?
When we reached Delhi, Rakhi, we were not allowed to see our families. And then next morning I found myself confined to a room where I was given large numbers of white sheets of paper and a pen, and I was given one question. On so-and-so date, you took Bravo 854 and you flew to Pakistan on a mission, and you have come back after 1 year. Where were you all these days and what happened to the aircraft? So this is the intelligence debrief back home, which I knew nothing about. I don't know if the others knew anything about it, but I was very disappointed with this. And for 2 days I did that, and it was only on the third day that I was allowed to meet my family, posted back to my original unit. So I happily rejoined 222 Squadron after 1 month of enforced leave. Well, from there on, life in the Air Force was a joy. 1 year later, that means in 1973, I got the Vir Chakra. So that was also another joy. And life continued. And my service career was very interesting.
Sir, you hold a rare record of surviving 3 ejections. How did you find the mental strength to get back into the cockpit?
I think this record of 3 ejections credit can only be given to the Air Force for allowing me to fly. On my part, as I told you, I always had the energy, always had the courage. I fought my way into the cockpit, and I flew, as I said, almost 1,000 missions from 1982 till I retired.
Sir, in your long career, you commanded operational air bases. How did your experience as a POW change your perspective on leadership and how you mentored younger pilots?
Well, Rakhi, my leadership style has never been dictatorial or laissez-faire. It's been a disciplined leadership style which has been based on experience right from what I learned from my school days. In fact, it's a good question that you've asked me. I met Group Captain John on the street in Bangalore. He came running up to me and he said, "Sir, I hope you remember me. I want to thank you because I'm now working for Boeing or one of those American companies." So I said, "What is it that has made you say this?" He said, "Sir, I remember all the branch heads, you called them and you told them to leave all those officers placed under them to do their own work." Basically what I had said was to my branch heads, I want all officers to function under independent responsibility. So a decentralization of their own leadership, so to speak, in the sense more interaction with the officers placed under them, and listen to everybody. Make sure that you are well considered before you take any adverse views or an adverse reaction. And I'm always available as AOC, so bring the matter up to me.
That speaks volumes about your leadership style. Finally, at the end, what is the single most important lesson you want the young generation to take from your story?
And I think if this one message that you're sending out, this podcast, it should encourage all our youngsters to have faith in our Indian Air Force as well as in our government. The government always does its best. It's just that we need good commanders to put the viewpoint of the Air Force. I hope I've answered all your questions to your satisfaction, and I hope everybody, whoever listens to it, enjoys it. Thank you.
Sir, thanks a lot for joining us. History often remembers wars by dates and borders, but history lives through the men who fought them. Today we listened not just to a war hero, but to a man who has lived courage in its rawest form. And today we did not just record a podcast, we preserved a living chapter of Indian Air Force history. Jai Hind.